Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled AND, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Our first coincidence miracle today is from a mother who tells us that when she delivered the baby at the hospital, the doctors found that the baby had a critical heart problem, and she said that this heart problem is such that only like 5% of children born with heart problems get this, and they go into immediate surgery, so it was extremely serious. The whole family began to pray for the boy, and she's happy to report an amazing thing happened. She noticed that her son had a blotch on his left calf, on his leg. It was a blotch. And after the surgery, everything turned out fine. After the surgery, the blotch had formed the shape of a heart, a red heart. Our next coincidence miracle is from a man who tells us he was at church. He went to church for services on a Sunday. And after the services were over, he lingered a little bit, praying privately. He noticed that there was a very attractive woman in the church, also there praying, and he thought he'd like to go over and introduce himself and try to drum up a discussion, but he felt uncomfortable doing that because it was in a church setting. So he said a prayer, asked for wisdom, got inspired to establish a fleece, and our book explains fleecing, and we've done that in prior weeks. We've explained fleecing, but basically what fleecing is, you ask God to inspire you with certain things that will happen to confirm for you that he wants you to do something, okay? So let's say, as a rough example, you're driving home from work and you get a thought to stop and pick up milk and bread, and you want to ask God to show you some sign that he will inspire you that really you should pick up the bread and the wine, the bread and the milk. And so he'll inspire you with something like, maybe he'll say, if you see a car with 3 4s on the plate, or if you see 2 red cars pass you on the highway. So he inspires you with something like that. It's called fleecing, where you ask God for directions and some signs and clues to direct you to make sure you're doing the right thing. In the Bible, there's 2 great cases of this. In the book of Judges, chapter 6, excellent case of fleecing, where General Gideon asked God to please show him a clue, and God did show him a clue. And in the book of Genesis, chapter 24, the servant of Abraham who's picking a wife for Isaac, also asked God for a clue and got a clue at the water well. So this man said, okay, he asked for a fleece, and he got inspired that on the count of 10, if the woman moved her left hand, on the count of 10, that would be a sign okay. And he set up 2 or 3 fleeces. He didn't tell us all of them, but so counting to 10 and seeing if she moved her left hand, and maybe counting to 10 again and seeing if she started looking into one of the books that were in the pew. But in any event, 3 fleeces were established, and they happened, and he got up and went over and introduced himself. They had a fantastic discussion. They've become good friends, and he's sharing with us that it was a miracle, and he was inspired. It was the first time he did fleecing for a thing like this, and it worked out famously. Our next coincidence miracle is something that happened to me. A couple of friends of mine called and asked me to pray with them over like a week's time to pray because one of their daughters was trying to have a child, was trying to get pregnant for 2 years, and they were getting very depressed about it. They're seeing a lot of doctors and getting frustrated about it, so it was causing tension in the family. So they were asking their friends to pray. So I was just one of many people praying. There were lots of people praying, but the story was pretty interesting because I didn't hear from them after that. We prayed for that week, and I didn't hear from them after, but I had confidence. You know, you have confidence in God and you're praying. You have a sense that God wants you to pray for something, and you have confidence it's going to happen. But I got busy with other things, never followed up. And about 5.5 months later, I met the mother who asked me to pray for them, and I said, "How are things going?" She said, "Oh, we got good news. My daughter is 5.5 months pregnant." And it just, like I got hit with a ton of bricks. I said, you know, it was 5.5 months ago that we prayed, and obviously we got a miracle because your daughter is 5.5 months pregnant. So I think this points out to us that when we're praying for things, we need to ask people, follow up, make sure we hear about the miracles that are happening. Otherwise, we may have many miracles in our life that nobody will ever hear about. And Psalm 105 in the Bible, Psalm 105, tells us that God wants us to publicize the miracles. God gives us miracles. They are things that help people believe in God. And so we should be telling people about miracles because it'll help people who don't think about God or don't think they can pray to God. It helps people to have confidence to pray. Our next coincidence miracle is from 3 people who tell us they were praying for a miracle to happen. They didn't tell us what the miracle was, but they were praying for a miracle to happen. And they believed and had confidence that it would happen. And it did happen. And after it happened, one of them received from another friend, a 4th person, a song called "The Goodness of God." And they shared it with the 3 people who were praying because they're telling us, if you get a chance, Google and listen to "The Goodness of God." And it explains how wonderful God is and how he does send us miracles when we are praying, and what a great, good God he is. Talks about the attributes of God. So their miracle was that someone sent them this song they never heard before, and the lyrics confirmed that they just got a miracle. So the information about the song, "The Goodness of God," came in precisely at the right moment for them. They prayed, they had the miracle, they received the miracle, and now they had a song that sang to them, and they listened to it. It brought tears to their eyes because it just told them about the great, wonderful miracle they just had and how happy they were, and the song reflects all of that. How do you feel when God sends you miracles? Our next coincidence miracle is from a woman who writes to us and says she was inspired one day to call a friend of hers and ask how they were doing because the grandmother of this friend was very ill, and they had both been praying for her. So she was inspired to call, and she did call, and what turned out to be a coincidence miracle was the person they called and spoke to said that they just got a message just now that the grandmother had passed away at the hospital, and they were just praying for her soul, that her soul would be allowed to enter into heaven. She was a wonderful woman. They don't have any doubt that she's going to heaven. She was clearly a wonderful woman according to what we read here. But the coincidence is that God inspired this person, put a thought in their head to call someone, and they called precisely at the moment that the message, the person had passed away and people were praying for them to get into heaven. So we're talking about coincidence miracles. We're talking about how God does talk to us. The way God talks to us is very, very often by inspiring us with a thought or sending an idea into our mind. And that's like mental telepathy. We've talked about this in the past. So when you ask God questions, you can expect to get answers in the form of inspirations in your mind or ideas in your mind, and that God is speaking to you in your soul. And it's just like mental telepathy. Our next coincidence miracle is something that happened to me. I was going shopping, inspired to go to a certain place, a certain store. When I got there, a car came into the parking lot the same time as I did with 3 5s on the license plate, which, as you know, for me is a clue. God sending a clue to get my attention that he's with me, to remind me that he's with me. And that's what these numbers do when you see 3 numbers, 3 5s or 3 7s or 3 3s, except for 3 6s. But any other number you see 3 numbers of. And the most perfect number is 3 7s. It adds up to 21, which is the perfect number. So in any event, I was inspired. I saw the 3 5s. I felt the presence of God was with me. I was happy about that. I went in, did some shopping, and as I was going into the store, I got inspired to hand a card to a woman who was coming out of the store. I was inspired to hand her a card. It talks about our book, talks about our radio show. So I did that. I followed the inspiration because I just saw the 3 5s. I was in the zone of sensing God. And a wonderful thing happened. The woman told me she listens to our show every Sunday morning. She gets a lot out of it. It's helped her notice coincidence miracles in her life. And we had a nice long talk. It was fantastic to hear how our radio show every week is helping her. And I told her about our website, that all the shows are on the website. So if you go to our website, you can listen to all of the past shows. You can listen to our book, our audio book, for free. And again, our website, for you to Google and get all these free things. Let me give you our website. It's WCAT Radio. That's WCATradio.com/miracles/ One more time, WCATradio.com/miracles/. Our next coincidence miracle is from a man who tells us he was worried about going to see a doctor for a follow-up visit. Apparently there was a cancer scare, and he was going to see the doctor to follow up. I guess they did blood work. And he was very happy to report that when he got to the doctor's parking lot, he pulled into the parking spot in the front of the first row, and there was a car right in front of him, not in front of him, but on the side of him, with 3 7s, which is the perfect number. And so he relates to us that he felt, peace to see that the car with 3 7s. This has happened to me also in my life, so I know the feeling. And it turns out it was a great report from the doctor. He didn't have to worry about the cancer scare. So when you see the perfect number 3 7s, it should remind you that God is available to talk to you anytime you want. Whenever you see 3 numbers, it should remind you to talk to God. He's always available to talk to us. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.